So this period of 10 years, from the dissolution until the year 2000, when there was no mutual legal basis to settle succession issues, is clearly not what we would like to see in international community. Thank you very much, Mark. First, I apologize for my voice, but I hope it will last till the end of this conference, so I have tea with me in case if I get strangled during this time. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Mark, and the whole organization team for hosting Slovenia and giving us, let's say, a little bit of a special focus this year. Outside, you can see also our pamphlets, and you can maybe, if you haven't visited Slovenia yet, of course, we would very much like to greet you there, the same as Scotland. We are small, but a very pleasant place to visit. Thank you so much also to the organizers for this year inviting to this event and a very special Berlin initiative. One of the most distinguished professors and academics in Slovenia, Professor Dr. Jambrek. It is always a great pleasure listening to his ideas and to his thoughts. What you didn't mention, Mark, in his presentation is that Professor Jambrek is one of the key persons of Slovenia's independence. He's the one who has drafted Slovenian constitution, and he's the one who was the most prominent figure during our independence movement in the 1990s. So listening to his thoughts about the possibilities of constitutional, let's say, arrangements in one of the most difficult regions in the world, I have to say are, of course, very enriching, and I was very happy to listen to them. Of course, needless to say that these are not state positions. I'm here also a representative of a state, and of course, this is something which I need to underline. Well, since you have invited me to take part in this panel on the Balkan region, and since we lately hear so much about the various attempts to negotiate peace in Ukraine and to find a long-lasting solution for the Palestine, I thought it would be appropriate if I say a few words about the case of the dissolution of Yugoslavia. As the aggression on Ukraine started in 2022, many Europeans, also my diplomats colleagues, spoke of a first war in the European soil after the Second World War. And of course, not to undermine the tragedy and the impact that the war in Ukraine has had on the existing international order, there was another war in the 1990s, which was going on for many years, also in the heart of Europe, and that was a war in the territory of the former Yugoslavia. If some claim that this war started as an internal conflict, this was surely not valid after the 4 former republics declared their independence and were recognized as such by international community. It was a conflict with heavy arms, with about 140,000 deaths, half of them civilians, millions of refugees, with numerous violations of international law and human rights, with a confirmed case of genocide, other war atrocities, even concentration camps. The agreement that ended the war in Bosnia and Herzegovina and has set up its structure is Dayton Agreement from 1995, which I'm sure you all know about. But later, another international treaty was signed in 2001, and it is the only agreement which was signed among all successor states to the former Yugoslavia. This is the agreement on succession issues. At the signing in Vienna in 2001, some labeled this agreement as a peace treaty. Why is this agreement, which was signed only 10 years after the breakup of Yugoslavia, so significant? Why actually is succession of states so paramount? And why do I claim that such legal arrangements, which are encompassing also state succession rules, contribute to the lasting peace, stability, and cooperation? State succession is a very important topic since it is closely related with statehood, sovereignty principle, territorial changes, and also the rule of law in international relations. Changes in sovereignty and territory are a constant in international relations. They have always occurred, and they always will occur in the future. The colleague before spoke also about the desire of independence of new states. You could, for example, in the 1990s, meet an old Slovenian fellow who would tell you that he was born in the Austrian Empire, lived in Italy during the wars, then was experiencing the multinational state of Yugoslavia, and at the end of his life was blessed to live in an independent Slovenia. So every time when there is a change in sovereignty on a special territory, so when a new state emerges or the old one dissolves or becomes smaller or bigger, this has significant political and legal implications in international community. If such occasions are governed by international law, we are all much better off. And here the rules of state succession come in. They try to preserve the legal security in international relations and to protect the rights and obligations not only between states, but also vis-à-vis individuals. Now, very briefly, what does state succession in fact regulate? These rules of international law govern the validity of international treaties, also borders and border regimes. They govern the question of membership in international organizations, citizenship, assets, debts, international responsibility, archives, cultural heritage, rights of individuals and legal persons such as property, pensions, acquire rights, and so on and so forth. So what succession is aiming at is that a transition of sovereignty in cases of territorial changes, such as dissolution of a state, unification, secession, cession, swap of territories, is handled in accordance with the law to the benefit of the stability of international community and the individuals who live there. So here I need to underline that, of course, all I'm speaking about is, of course, the territorial changes which are not illegal. Those changes which are acquired by force or aggression in accordance with the principle ex injuria jus non oritur, of course, cannot be recognized by law and do not lead to succession. But of course, agreements, peace treaties signed by states in the conflicts can have implications on territories and do entail succession rules. It has been so in the agreement on cession of Alaska to the United States in 1867, when peace treaties were signed between Russia and the Baltic states, for example, Tartu Peace Treaty in 1920. Succession rules are part of the Versailles, Saint-Germain, Trianon treaties after the First World War, and all peace treaties that were signed after the Second World War. And most recently, succession rules are the backbone of agreements signed on the occasion of the dissolutions of Czechoslovakia, Soviet Union, and Yugoslavia, as well as the unification of Germany in the 1990s, and most recently at the time of independence of South Sudan and Montenegro. So there are many more examples than this which I have just mentioned, but a firm conclusion after studying all of this can be made. When the territorial changes which affect the sovereignty of a state, or maybe more states, occur, and they are accompanied by clear and exact legal rules on succession, this is of great importance for the future stability and the good interstate relations. As one of my colleagues, diplomats, have once put it, successions are the prophets of the future. I agree with this, and I think we should be all aware of this when speaking about the future arrangements in Ukraine and also in the Middle East and elsewhere. The case of Yugoslavia could be in this sense an interesting reference. It is a very unique case in global sense. There are many colleagues, I think, who have lived through this time, so they know how this looked like, but I will be very brief. For the first 10 years after the dissolution of a state and during the wars, there was a major disagreement about what happened with the predecessor state, and because of this, no mutual agreement on succession could be made. Slovenia, Croatia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, and today known as North Macedonia, based on self-determination, declared their independence and were soon recognized as sovereign new states and members of United Nations and international community. They claimed, so we claimed, that because of this, Yugoslavia disintegrated and no part was its sole successor. The vast majority of legal authorities and states and international organizations agreed with this position. However, Serbia claimed that it continued the legal personality, sovereignty of Yugoslavia, and that the other four republics have seceded from it. Therefore, Serbia claimed to retain all the rights and obligations of the former Yugoslavia. This major legal dispute was settled only in 2000, after the fall of Milosevic in Belgrade, when Serbia then accepted to be, in parentheses, just one of the 5 equal successors to Yugoslavia, and has applied for a new membership to the United Nations only in year 2000. So this period of 10 years, from the dissolution until the year 2000, when there was no mutual legal basis to settle succession issues, is clearly not what we would like to see in international community. Each state adopted national legislation to deal with the legacy of Yugoslavia, like citizenship, treaties, membership in international organizations, distribution of financial assets and debts, nationalization of property, and so on and so forth. All of this was handled without the mutual agreement among the successor states, and still today we see the negative results of this. There are still border disputes in the region, numerous lawsuits of individuals at the national and international courts, unsettled questions of, let's say, military equipment, assets in foreign bank accounts, and so on. So to conclude on a more positive note, in 2001, finally the agreement on succession issues in Yugoslavia was signed. Although even today not all succession issues are finally settled in the region of the former common state, and the implementation of the agreement is lacking in many areas, we have, better late than ever, a solid national legal basis how to do it. And also the EU has many times recognized the importance of this succession agreement for the stability and prosperity of the region, for the reconciliation, good cooperation among successor states and their future relations. So Ronald Reagan once said, when we speak of peace, we should not mean just the absence of war. True peace rests on the pillars of individual freedom, human rights, national self-determination, and respect for the rule of law. And as we are hopefully approaching negotiations for the long-lasting peace in Ukraine, in the Palestine, and elsewhere around the world, we should not forget that when peace is made, the international law should be observed, and also succession rules should be respected. I guess this is the peace which many politicians call a just peace, and only such peace can be long-lasting, acceptable by all sides, and can contribute to the future cooperation, good neighborly relations, and respect among nations. And since my voice is now really coming down, it's time for me to stop. Thank you so much. And I would be, of course, later on in this round on the Balkan region, very happy to also hear some questions or maybe some comments from our colleagues from the region on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.